Hey friends, my name's Gabrielle and welcome to FrumiousReads, and we are on week 2 of my book a day wrap up while I read through my shelves for the next 6 months. We're going to be going through June 8th all the way to June 19th, so Sunday. And the reason I'm doing that is because it's a little easier for me to do my wrap ups on a Sunday, just because I feel like I have more time to record them. So starting from here on out, they're going to be uploaded on Sundays. But yeah, let's go ahead and talk about the books that I read this week. So, first things first, one of the books that I read was Writing Magic by Gail Carlson Levine. There we go. Now you can see it. And I read this book because I'm always interested in picking up new tips and tricks for when it comes to writing. And I really enjoy writing as like a fun pastime. And in this book, the author, Levine, actually gives some pretty good tips on how to write stories that are kind of more just like interesting and engaging and that help keep the readers focused. There's nothing like groundbreakingly new in this, but it's still like a fun read, and I really like how the author worded a lot of her advice and how she kind of made it more relatable in writing and kind of talked about writing as this big passion. So that was really cool. If you're interested in figuring out some more writing tips and tricks, or if you're an author looking for stuff like new perspectives, check out Writing Magic. It's a really good one. The next book I read is a poetry anthology, and that is How the Body Works in the Dark by Derek C. Brown. It's a collection of love poems, and it was actually really good. It's very much kind of like in the style of Rupi Kaur, and I just was really feeling poetry this week and also did not have a ton of time. So these anthologies were a great way for me to get through my reading challenge while still focusing on reading and reading through books that I had never actually finished before. I love the titles. The titles are really cool. Like the titles are stuff like In a Praise of Strobe Light Voice or Brat But My Brat. I like that one. I felt a personal connection. And all of them are just really good poems, and I think it kind of captures a lot of like different stages of love, as you could say. Like I said, I was feeling poems this week, so the next thing I actually read was Some Things I Still Can't Tell You by Misha Collins. Yes, it is Supernatural's very own Misha Collins, and I really enjoyed this. I picked up this book because I was a super huge Supernatural fan. I really like Misha Collins, and I think that it's funny because like Misha Collins' personality is very like humorous, but with surprising sides of like seriousness that I don't think we saw a ton of as Supernatural fans, because Castiel started as a very serious character and then kind of evolved to be someone more naive and humorous. This book, there actually was a lot of more serious poems that I wasn't expecting, so it was like a nice surprise. Once again, nothing like groundbreakingly great, nothing completely like world-shattering, but definitely a good read, and I really enjoyed it. The next book I read was another anthology of poems by Amanda Lovelace. I have almost all of her collections of poetry, and I did not realize that. She is someone who writes very much in the style of Rupi Kaur, who I hope I pronounced that name right. If I did not, please correct me. I always really enjoy her anthologies, and I really like how she plays with the style of like text, and also how she will like make things in certain formats, and that's where I also lean a lot of my personal writing style, is in that way. As someone who's read a couple of her different books, anthologies, I would say that this one is very similar to her other ones. There's definitely some new materials, but if you liked her other books, you'll probably like this one because it doesn't diverge too far from that. But it still has enough new, it's still all new material, but it just has a very familiar feel when you read it. So the next one I read was another Amanda Lovelace, and it was The Mermaid's Voice Returns in this one, and she tore the stars apart. I have to say, I love her play on titles and how she kind of makes poetry out of the titles of her books. So I feel like that's always really cool. And then, like I said, if you've read one Amanda Lovelace poetry collection, you kind of know how she writes and her style. This one is a little bit different. I feel like it's very similar to the other poems she writes, but I think that it kind of tries to embrace more of that fantasy feel. I also really enjoyed how the cover itself is purple and there's like little green highlights, and then the words, like the poems themselves, are also purple on the inside. So that's just something I personally enjoyed and I thought was a fun little aspect of it. I basically just went through my one shelf of poetry and mythology and decided that these were the books that I was going to read, because the next ones I have looks like a children's book, but It's actually Fairy Tales of Puerto Rico. And I just picked this up at a Goodwill store because I love different aspects of mythology and fairy tales, and I think that it's important for someone who likes like fairy tale retellings to always look for originals, like the original inspirations and the sources. So far, I don't know any books off the top of my head that still embrace different like retellings from different cultures. So I figured that I could kind of narrow my search down and look for those books. So I read this one. It's fun. It was a cool little fairy tale story. There was definitely some that felt a little familiar. Like I feel like the inspiration was similar across cultures, or there were some that I'm like, okay, like I recognize the theme or the what's the word I'm looking for? The message of this story. But yeah, it was definitely a fun one, and it was just like a little quick read. Like I said, it looks like a kid's book, but it actually has a lot of really cool mythology and fairy tales in it. And I love mythology and fairy tales, so of course I had to read it. So yeah, definitely a book that was just a quick fun thing to read for. I think it's perfect for all ages. And the final book for that week, 8th through the 15th, was The Perfect Place to Die. And this was by Bryce Moore. I actually picked this up at a little free library, so I was very excited to read it. And this is a murder mystery crime book, but kind of more set for the young adult genre. And it's set in the 1890s during the Chicago World Fair, where a girl from the country goes to the city of Chicago because her sister, who ran away a while before, has suddenly stopped sending her letters. And this sister was very prompt and very consistent with her letters. Every single Tuesday for the entire time that she'd been gone, she sent her letters. And so when she stops getting these letters, obviously she's super concerned, and she takes it upon herself to go and try and figure out what's happened to her. So this one is actually really, really good. Was not expecting too much when I started, but I found that I loved the main character more and more as she got out of her small town and went to Chicago and just really faced all these hardships. Like within the first couple chapters, she's already been robbed and turned down by police and had to find more strength and courage. So it's a really cool way to look at character growth. She gets to kind of meet her heroes and also impress them, but also like stay true to herself while she does it. And it's like a great book if you like murder mystery and crime, but are also a fan of young adult novels. Definitely recommend this one, The Perfect Place to Die. And then these final three books are going to be from June 16, 17, and 18. I'm like cross-referencing with my watch to make sure that I get the right books and the right days. So starting next week, I will talk about the 19th through the 25th. Like I said, I did not have a ton of time this week, so Perfect Place to Die was the longest book that I read. So for these last 3 days, I read John Steinbeck's classic, The Pearl, because it's been on my shelf for a long time and I've heard decent things about it, and so I wanted to kind of just give it a chance. And it was good. Like, it was a classic. I feel like out of all the classics, this was at least a quick one to read. And this was one that's based on a Mexican folktale. I felt like at least I was kind of connecting to my roots a little bit by reading it. The next book that I read was The Butcher's Tale and Other Stories by an old professor of mine, Derek Updegraff, and he was really cool. It's a collection of short stories, and I just really thought it was a fun read. Definitely recommend it if you're a fan of the short stories, because I've been trying to get more into them, and so this is one I always come back to when I'm trying to motivate myself to read more short stories. And finally, the last ones that I read was Sonnets of the Portuguese. That is because I am Portuguese and I was really feeling the poetry this week, and so I went through and read these sonnets, and it was actually pretty good. I felt like it read more like stories than sonnets. Alright, but yeah, so those are the books that I read this past week and a half-ish. I would love to know if you guys have read any of them or what your thoughts and comments are on the books that I read down below. So feel free to leave a comment, and if you want to subscribe, just keep up to date with all my bookish adventures, make sure you do so. But that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you guys later. Okay, bye.